The U.S. military killed senior ISIL leader Bilal al-Sudani and 10 other members during an operation in northern Somalia on Wednesday, and that's according to senior Biden administration officials. Assessments indicate that Sudani was a leader of the Islamic State group in Somalia and supported terror activities across Africa and beyond. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said Sudani's involvement included facilitating ISIL's global network and funding operations, including in Afghanistan. Austin added that no civilians were injured during the operation in Somalia. Let's get more on this. We're now joined by Mohammed Kahir from Mogadishu for more details on the U.S. military operation. Mohammed, welcome to the program. Mohammed, what more do we know about this operation?
Well, Richard, as you said, the U.S. Defense Department, Pentagon, has confirmed that a senior Islamic State leader and a key financier was killed in Somalia's northeastern region of Puntland, a mountainous region, on yesterday. And this operation was conducted by the U.S. forces. It was conducted by U.S. forces. And then the U.S. says that its main intention was to capture Bilal al-Sudani and his associates, but the intention has failed, and all 10 militants and their leader was killed. Well, U.S. Defense Department, U.S. Defense Secretary Austin says that this puts the United States citizens and also the partner countries like Somalia to be more safer and secure. And remember, this man is very, very significant in ISIS, and he was hiding in Somalia's mountainous region, which has been hideout for militants like ISIS for years. And he was on U.S. intelligence radar since 2012. And the Somali government welcomed and saying that this was welcoming and positive news, and it strengthens the relationship, of course, security and stability cooperation between Mogadishu and Washington. And as we know, this continues cooperation as Somalia continues also to fight armed group on one hand, and also cooperates with international partners like the United States in the fight against other terrorists like ISIS, which is very, very active in that mountainous region of Puntland, in northeastern region of the country.
All right, Mohammed, I'd like to talk more about that region. Tell us a bit more about the northern Somalia region where ISIS has been operating, as you've said. What activities has the group been carrying out in this region?
Well, Islamic State, Somalia's wing is very, very active in Puntland region, that is northeastern part of the country. Well, that is a very mountainous region which has a lot of terrain, and it makes it very, very easy for Islamic State militants to conduct the activities. They have conducted various attacks against regional troops in Puntland, which are trained by the U.S. various times. Also, U.S. has targeted those militants using airstrikes and drone strikes several times. It has become very, very challenging for Somalia to deal with it. That's why it is seeking the support of international partners like U.S., which is provides significant air support to Somalia's armed forces in the fight against terrorists like al-Shabaab and ISIS. And the ISIS tried to attack or carry out attacks against regional forces several times, but support of U.S. was very, very crucial. And that terrain and that mountainous region is becoming them very, very a hideout for those terrorists.
Mohammed Kahir in Mogadishu, thanks for that. We're now joined by Dr. Hassan Kanenje, Director of the Horn Institute for Strategic Studies here in Kenya. Doctor, welcome to the program. We appreciate your time as well. Now, how significant is the killing of Bilal al-Sudani in efforts to stop the expansion of ISIS around the world and here on the continent, Doctor?
I think the elimination of al-Sudani is important, especially considering the rise of extremism, not just in the Horn of Africa, but across the continent. Now, while the presence of ISIS in Somalia is relatively small compared to al-Shabaab, they still have followers numbering into hundreds. And al-Sudani having played a role as financier, but also previously as a role in recruitment, including of the al-Shabaab itself, of course, is a big threat and he has extensive networks. So eliminating someone with that capacity and reach and sophistication, I think, is significant in the war against terrorism and violent extremism.
Dr. Hassan, I'd like to explore that idea a little more and for you to expand on that. The U.S. has described Bilal al-Sudani as a key facilitator for ISIS's global network. What has been the role of ISIS in Somalia's long-running insurgency?
As I mentioned, al-Sudani himself was formerly involved in recruitment or within the al-Shabaab ranks and helped swell the ranks of al-Shabaab before he actually joined ISIS. Now, we understand that ISIS is a sworn enemy of al-Shabaab, in part because they are working at cross purposes in ways in which they seek to undermine each other. But to the extent that they've established a foothold, especially in northern parts of Somalia and parts of Puntland in the mountains, it poses a challenge, not just to ability for the Somali government to operate and to establish law and order, but generally for the region to actually contain multiple threats, especially multiple extremist threats. Al-Shabaab has been disturbing enough. And so the extent that ISIS is spreading its wings in the region, of course, has been worrying. And so any attempt to be able to reduce its impact, of course, is going to be a very important, move. And so what we see is the recent attacks have demonstrated ability of the international community as well as the Somali government to blunt the impact, not just of al-Shabaab, but fundamentally of ISIS, which has more global jihadist aspirations as actually opposed to al-Shabaab itself.
Dr. Hassan, speaking of the international community, the United States has been intensifying its anti-terror operations in Somalia in recent weeks. Are we seeing a change of strategy here?
No, we are not seeing a change of strategy. We're actually seeing doubling down of that strategy. I think there's a determination to ensure that, as for instance, the al-Shabaab is on the back foot at the moment, as well as ISIS, that the efforts to contain and eliminate them are multiplied. Now, the challenge, though, is going to be whether these efforts are going to be sustained, in part because there is a little bit more focus on the hard power, as opposed to, or rather, a combination that's required of soft power to ensure that communities are rebuilt and that the institutions are built and that these countries can be able to actually build the capacity, local capacities to ensure that extremist groups such as al-Shabaab and ISIS do not reemerge and become viable.
All right, Dr. Hassan Kanenje, Director, the Horn Institute for Strategic Studies here in Kenya. Thanks for that.